James, chapter 1. Verse 1. James, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greeting. Greetings are given by James. This James is not referred to as son of Zebedee or son of Alphaeus, who is listed as disciples in the Gospels, Matthew 10 verses 2 through 3. This is the brother of Jesus who was born to Mary and Joseph after Jesus' birth, Acts 1 verses 13 to 14. He experienced a special appearance of Christ but is not classed as an apostle, 1 Corinthians 15 verse 7. James was a key leader in the early Christian church in Jerusalem, and tradition has it he was martyred in AD 62 or 69. Verses 2 to 4. My brethren, count it all joy when ye fall into divers temptations, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. But let patience have her perfect work, that ye may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. Temptation in the Greek is pyrasmos, which is defined as putting to proof, by experiment, of good, experience, of evil, solicitation, discipline or provocation, or, by implication, adversity. Temptation is a trial of any kind, not always necessarily a trial to cause to sin. 1 Peter 1 verses 6 to 7. Trials are meant to test our faith, and those who endure not only show faithfulness but learn patience. This patience is what helps us get through the many trials faced in life. There are two blessings to patience. 1. Personal perfection in the knowledge of the gospel and will of God, Philippians 3 verses 13 to 16. 2. Personal completeness in all graces and gifts of God, 1 Thessalonians 5 verses 23 to 24. Verses 5 to 8. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that giveth to all men liberally, and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him. But let him ask in faith, nothing wavering. For he that wavereth is like a wave of the sea driven with the wind and tossed. For let not that man think that he shall receive anything of the Lord. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. Very valuable information is covered in these verses. When we adhere to the wisdom given, God can not only help us walk according to His will but use us to show others by example. The key thing is to be aware of the lack in our lives. This in turn makes us conscious of the need for godly wisdom. When we see what is needed, we are to ask God to help us overcome the shortfall or lack. This allows God to give liberally, as He always does when we are in His will. He will not shame or upbraid us for the need for help, but we do see rebuke throughout the Word for unbelief and those that never strive to be centered in His will. While He promises to give to those who are truly seeking His wisdom, it is our job to ask in faith, nothing wavering. When we doubt, we are like waves. We rise and then fall, believing one moment and doubting the next. Doubt stops us in our tracks. Being double-minded was the term used by Jews of a man who attempted to serve God but still loved the creature. This person desires to have security in both worlds. They refuse to completely give up things of the flesh, but are not willing to give up heaven either. This person is constantly torn between carnal and spiritual things. Verses 9 to 11. Let the brother of low degree rejoice in that he is exalted, but the rich, in that he is made low, because as the flower of the grass he shall pass away. For the sun is no sooner risen with a burning heat, but it withereth the grass, and the flower thereof faileth, and the grace of the fashion of it perisheth. So also shall the rich man fade away in his ways. The poor should rejoice in their hope for heaven. The rich should be glad for his humiliation, since both are in the probation body only for a short time. The rich man out of Christ fades like the flowers along with their riches and all that they have placed their hope into. Verse 12. Blessed is the man that endureth temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Lord hath promised to them that love Him. Whether confronting satanic assault, internal desire, cultural pressure, or impending eschatological upheaval, believers stand secure in the faithfulness of God. We are blessed when we endure, and we are promised the crown of life for our love of God, which helps us defeat temptation to sin. Verses 13 to 16. Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God, for God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man. But every man is tempted, when he is drawn away of his own lust, and enticed. Then when lust hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin, and sin, when it is finished, bringeth forth death. Do not err, my beloved brethren. Many times people want to lay at God's feet the guilt of their temptation. God cannot be tempted with evil. Neither does he tempt any man with it. However, it is in our nature to blame others for our weaknesses, and we often blame God because we consider him all-powerful. Thus we want to label our temptations as trials sent by God when it is actually our own lust and desires that are tempting us. There are many steps involved in temptation. Being aware of them can aid us in avoiding the trap. First, we are tempted or have the thought of evil. Then we are drawn away in thought and body by strong imaginations. By being drawn away, we are lusting or delighting in the thing tempting us. Then we are enticed with these lusts or delights, and by indulging in these thoughts we are weakening our self-will. Through indulgence the lust is conceived by our yielding to it. Then we begin to sin by acting upon it. Death is the end result of giving in to the sin. This will affect us not only in this life but the next. The majority of temptations are almost always due to our own wants or lusts. We blame God for being drawn away by the things we desire. Yet he has given us the tools to overcome, starting with his word which guides us. We err when we choose to believe that God authored sin, and then for the sake of trial he tempts us. The even bigger error is when we believe that he tempts us to sin so that he then can condemn or damn us for failure. When in truth it is we who fail because we succumb to our flesh, even though his word plainly states what is right and wrong. Verse 17. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, and cometh down from the Father of lights, with whom is no variableness, either shadow of turning. Good comes from God who never changes. Evil comes from Satan and fallen man who are bent on doing those things that fulfill the desires of the flesh. God does not change like the seasons. He is the same at all times. Neither does he change as the sundial. He is constant and never changing. Verse 18. Of his own will begot he us with the word of truth, that we should be a kind of firstfruits of his creatures. It is God's will that all man be saved and begotten by the word. John 3 verses 16 to 17. 1 Timothy 2 verses 4 to 5. 2 Peter 3 verses 9 to 10. Revelation 22 verse 17. The word of truth is one of the agents that make men new creatures. John 3 verses 5 to 8. 1 Peter 1 verses 23 to 25. Verses 19 to 22. Wherefore, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath, for the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God. Wherefore lay apart all filthiness and superfluity of naughtiness, and receive with meekness the engrafted word, which is able to save your souls. But be ye doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving your own selves. We are commanded to be swift to hear and slow to speak. We are to be slow to wrath, laying aside all filthiness and overflowing of wickedness. We are to receive the word with meekness and be doers of it. It must be understood that the wrath of man cannot work the righteousness that God requires. We must avoid all filthiness and superfluity of naughtiness that cause our downfall. Further inspection of these specific traits is needed. Filthiness in the Greek is ruperia, defined as dirtiness, morally, or turpitude, which in the Greek is ruperos, which means dirty, i.e., relatively, cheap or shabby, morally, wicked, vile. Turpitude, according to Webster's, is inherent baseness, depravity. Superfluity in the Greek is parousia, defined as abundance, surplus, superfluity, overflow. The term highlights the idea of an overflow or something that exceeds the expected measure, whether describing grace, generosity, or wickedness. The word pictures a surplus so large that it spills over the boundaries of ordinary experience. Naughtiness in the Greek is kakia, defined as badness, i.e., subjectively, depravity, or actively, malignity, or passively, trouble, evil, malice, naughtiness, wickedness. The term denotes an inner disposition of ill will that schemes harm against God or neighbor. Scripture treats it as a heart-level corruption that surfaces in attitudes, words, and systems, and that must be renounced by all who have been joined to Christ. The idea or point is that we are to put aside the abundance of wickedness, and not only receive but also obey the word. By denouncing all filthiness and superfluity of naughtiness, the soul can be saved. By acting upon the word and not only hearing it, we free ourselves from the wrath of man, that worketh not the righteousness of God. We are not to deceive ourselves with false reasoning. Verses 23 to 25. For if any be a hearer of the word, and not a doer, he is like unto a man beholding his natural face in a glass. For he beholdeth himself, and goeth his way, and straightway forgetteth what manner of man he was. But whoso looketh into the perfect law of liberty, and continueth therein, he being not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the work, this man shall be blessed in his deed. When we hear or understand the word, we are to act on its instructions. We are not to deceive ourselves with false reasonings after hearing it. Colossians 2 verses 4 to 8. To hear the word and not act upon it is like looking into a mirror. When in front of the mirror, a person's blemishes are obvious. Once stepping away from the mirror, the blemishes are often not thought of until in front of the mirror again. It is the same with the word. Once we step away from it, no longer studying it, we have a tendency to forget the picture of the evil man as seen through the word. We then stop working on the things that need improvement. This is worse than never hearing, because it then becomes a deliberate move to not heed the word God has given. Those who take a closer look and insist on self-improvement to line up with the word will be blessed. The perfect law of liberty mentioned is the new covenant that we have after Jesus' death. Many believe the Old Testament is no longer relevant or needed. This is not so. The Old Testament was improved by the New Covenant. We must not forget that many commands from the Old appear in the New. Much of the more cumbersome parts of the law were not brought into New Covenant, but this does not mean the Old Testament is to be ignored. There are still many valuable lessons to be learned from it. Verses 26 to 27. If any man among you seem to be religious, and bridleth not his tongue, but deceiveth his own heart, this man's religion is vain. Pure religion and undefiled before God and the Father is this, to visit the fatherless and widows in their affliction, and to keep himself unspotted from the world. The world would call a person who is a careful follower for his belief religious. However, one who claims to follow the word closely but doesn't bridle his tongue deceives his own heart. Deceive in the Greek is apateo and is defined as to deceive, i.e. delude, to lead astray. The term conveys the act of misleading. This can be done by deliberate fraud or by subtle distortion of reality. When we follow all the rules but choose not to watch over our mouths, we deceive ourselves. Words are important, and using them without thought is dangerous. James goes on to state what is pure and undefiled religion, and we must listen and take heed. We are to visit the orphans and widows in their affliction, and to keep life unspotted from the world. We must understand that true religion consists of universal benevolence and purity of heart and life. Matthew 5 verses 13 through 18 and verses 43 through 46. 2 Corinthians 9 verses 6 to 9. Colossians 1 verses 9 to 11. 1 Timothy 1 verse 5. Titus 2 verse 7. Hebrews 12 verses 12 to 15. 1 Peter 2 verses 11 to 12. 1 John 3 verses 16 to 18.